incredibly odd. Not even odd. It was just typical Hollywood to put out this movie Cinco de Mayo weekend. You know,
Cinco de Mayo wasn't big in 1999.
it really wasn't.
That became a post 2000 thing.
Cinco de Mayo's been around for a while.
No. It's been around forever.
As far as popularity,
but the popularity like exploded post 2000s.
So they just didn't care.
No, they didn't. Imagine if they dropped the Mask of Zorro this weekend instead.
Like President's Day. Oh no! If they drop Max Zorro on Cinco de Mayo weekend, stereotypical, you know. Welcome.
It's like dropping like a 9/11 movie during Independence Day.
Oh wow, dude, that would suck.
It would.
That would suck so bad.
We're here to talk about your freedom, and the best way to do so is to remind you of the horror of 2001.
Did you forget? We definitely
did forgot. It's almost been 20 years.
Throw Nick Cage in that joint real quick.
We did super throwback of terrorist events.
Oh my!
Back to the classics of history here. With this is a terrible way to start this show.
It really is. Back to the classics. Back to the Unabomber. Like
back to the Unabomber.
Like no.
You know, it's funny because I think the Ted Bundy like Netflix thing just dropped.
We saw it the other day.
How is it?
It's pretty damn good, actually. I enjoyed it.
We're going to talk about that here in a second.
Welcome back to the Classic, the cinematic movie podcast that takes you back to the iconic films of 20 years ago. I am Jay Alonzo. With me, of course, is
David Danger Neff, Fedora Neff. It's coming into play here today. These headphones are not working with this.
What the headset? He looks like a Spanish DJ.
And keep it funky now.
But without the headphones, you look like you're going on to a great vacation.
Oh, I really am.
A lot of fishing involved. Like a lot of fishing is involved.
That's racist. Why? Because I'm white?
No, because you're wearing a hat. And usually with that kind of hat, if you're either you're gonna wear the hat, go fishing, or you're going to some type of a Cuban
I'm
lounge.
retreating. I'm retreating out to some isles, and it's funny because I actually picked this up in Mexico, like in a Mexican town in Mexico, and
it's cool.
I spoke to them in Spanish to actually get it, and then afterwards they're like you were the only one who decided to speak to me in Spanish today, and they're like, because of that, we're gonna give you a tequila shot. And I was like, fuck yeah, man, this is great. You know, it was legit tequila too, man. I got messed up. You
honestly look like you play the bad guy in a Michael Jackson video. Like, honest to God, true. Say
me, turn down that music now. Why don't you?
No. Say, we're gonna kill you, Michael Jackson.
we're gonna kill you, Michael Jackson.
No, in the language.
In the accent. We're gonna kill you, Michael Jackson.
Perfect. Cut to Michael Jackson doing this whole breakdown dance move. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, exactly. Hell of a way to start the show. What's going on?
It's Cinco de Mayo.
It is Cinco de Mayo as we are recording this today. Happy Cinco de Mayo to everybody out there.
And for those of you who are listening in Latin American countries or in my country of Spain, Feliz Dia de los Madres, as it is your special day. And we're happy to celebrate this here with you.
Absolutely.
With incredibly racist jokes that we're starting out the show with. This is awful. I'm going to get so much crap for this. It's going to be fun.
Really?
Nah, I don't know.
We're doing the show early this week because I am taking a trip next week to go see my grandmother. Me, Lois, my girlfriend's going. My mom's going. So we're taking this really big trip to Cleveland next year. Next week.
Next year.
Next week. So
they're leaving. They're beginning the preparations now.
Yeah, so you won't see me all this year
week.
for next week. For next year. And then so it's a busy week because I have the trip I got to take. It's my lady's birthday on Wednesday, so we're doing the dinner thing. We're doing the trip to Cleveland. We're gonna celebrate my grandmother's birthday. We're gonna party up, drink, just stuff, family stuff.
Right.
Then go out to Pittsburgh and other places of Ohio. Shop Steubenville. Hey. And then
shout out
Steubenville, Ohio. That's what my lady.
Steubenville.
Man,
I heard a different word there. I was
Steubenville?
No, I heard Stupidville. I was like, did you really just call an entire town in Ohio dumb?
No.
Did you stoop
You stoop to that level. You stoop down to stupid.
Man, I'm goofy today. I don't know why.
But yeah, so we're doing this today, so this will come out on Thursday. But as we're recording this today, happy Cinco de Mayo to you guys. Say it again. In
Feliz Dia de los Madres.
Feliz Dia de los Madres.
Ooh, oh, yeah,
Close?
there you go.
Close?
No,
not at all. All right, well, happy Mother's Day in Spanish.
Happy Mother's Day in Spanish from America.
Boom, there it is. How's your week?
I mean, it was fine. I worked 6 days this week. This is my only day off. So it's fine. It's fine. Nothing too bad. We were originally going to have a guest on the show today, but unfortunately some scheduling errors did not work out in the way that we wanted to do so. So now we're going to switch things up a little bit, and we're actually going to talk about what we did, not this past week, but the week before, when Jay and myself, we were actually at the Level Up Expo.
Time goes by so fast. Guys, really, that was 2 weeks ago.
It was. If you think about it, yeah, technically it was last week.
Oh, it was last week.
Yeah, it was last week because it was. I'm saying 2 weeks ago because I had to work this week, and so it feels like it's been forever. Time extends when I'm at work.
Time consumes.
Shortens. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So we were at the Level Up Expo, and I think we got a lot of really great footage.
Above all else, we had a blast, man. That thing was so much fun. It was so much fun there.
So we arrived there around Saturday. So the Level Up Expo happened Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. We arrived there on Saturday right about noon, and we were pretty much done with what we actually wanted to film by about 4 p.m. And we got to meet a lot of really cool people. We met Eric Gansel, who is the owner and operator of Drinks with Frenemies. Wanted to give a little special shout out with him. And that's going to be something that I think we can do as a Beat family thing. So to kind of represent what his game basically is, it's similar in the same, it's in the same fashion as what do you call that? Cards Against Humanity.
Kind of a Cards Against Humanity kind of a
feel. Cards Against,
which a bit of a spice.
Drinks are involved.
Yes,
is where it
spicier
kind of the big
way
thing
of looking at things, though, as far as
right.
that.
So, and there was a lot of fun things, and you can actually catch that interview at beatnetworkonline.com. Jay did that interview, and that was actually a lot of fun. We met up with a lot of local artists out here. There was a lot of cosplay that was going on there. And for those of you who have been living under a rock and don't fully understand what cosplay is, it's basically representation of fans of their own nerd fandom or geekdom, whatever you want to call it, basically dressing up as these actual characters. And we saw plenty of them.
A lot. Some people put in some really good time into putting these costumes together. You had an interview with this one particular young lady who was dressed as
Rescue from My Hero Academia. So for those of you who watch anime, My Hero Academia, we had a young lady, her name is Kennedy, who was dressed up as Rescue. And it was really fascinating because the way that her outfit looked, very similar to what an astronaut would look like in our universe, in the universe that we are currently living in, not the multiverse. No, but in all seriousness, she was dressed like an astronaut, and it was so fascinating to kind of see it because if you have no idea about who or what it was, you would have no idea like what
then you'd be me.
Right, exactly. But me, I'm a fan of My Hero Academia, so I was able to actually kind of check it out. And she was absolutely lovely to actually speak with. We also met with a Harley Quinn and Joker cosplay.
Yes, their costume was very well put together.
Yes,
especially Joker. Joker had that chin thing on.
He did, and
almost if you same level with the nose. I thought was very interesting.
So I don't think this is going to show up on the interview, but you can actually, but that's actually all prosthetic, is what they did to the chin and the nose to actually kind of extend it out for the more classic Joker look. And Harley Quinn looked fantastic.
Absolutely. We also was able to get an interview with my guy, Jace Battle, who was supposed to be here today. But we had a great quick run-in with him. He was actually wrestling at the event. Great talk with him. And then you had an awesome interview with a band that does
That's right, yeah.
music through a Game Boys.
So right. And this is incredibly unique way of actually presenting their music. Essentially, the band name is called Decaying Tigers. They're a local band out here in Las Vegas. And what was so fascinating about them is that they would actually take Nintendo cartridges that you could literally plug in with a USB, similar to what we have in our setup here, to these Game Boys, and you could play the music that you could create yourself on these Game Boy cartridges.
Right. Pretty dope.
And it's really fantastic. So what we want to do, hopefully, is once we fully release what the video is going to kind of look like, montages and whatnot. I was able to actually catch the panel of Ruby, which is which you can catch on Rooster Teeth. There is I don't want to call it an anime because it's an American cartoon. So it's an American cartoon inspired by Japanese anime in that case. And I was able to catch the panel with them. I filmed a wrestling match as well, and a lot of really great material with this. We hope that this can kind of expand to more things. There was a lot of benefits that Jay and I actually had, like walking in, we were like, oh yeah, we're press media. Like we weren't like that, but we were like, hey, we're press media.
We were something like that, only because the people who called for it got it. They had it coming to them for sure. Like,
right.
Shout out to the security guy who was maintaining the parking structure there. Hey, buddy, how's it feel? But I'm not gonna be that guy.
No,
but we had a great time.
We did have a great time. The other thing that was interesting was because we got a lot of early looks of things. So we got to meet. I got to meet Tony Todd. For those of you who know who he is, he's Candyman. Also has a big role in Final Destination as well. I got to meet the voice of the Crypt Keeper, the voice of Mario and Bowser, the voice of Trunks, Piccolo, and Vegeta from the Dragon Ball Z saga. So a lot of really kind of voice acting ability that's out here. But that's our goal here for Beat Network, is to kind of present more of these little topics and invite you guys out to kind of join us and geek out with us with that. And yeah.
And don't forget, we have several more expos and events coming up that we will be a part of. Just you wait. Comic-Cons are calling. CinemaCon is coming.
Yeah, I think
Sundance is coming.
I think we just got the email to actually do New York Comic-Con again.
Yeah.
To actually go ahead and start doing our registration for that and whatnot. And we'll see where that kind of goes. Hopefully maybe they caught on to us. No, I'm just kidding. But
give us a boost.
Give us a little bit of boost in there and see what's going to be out there. What we really would like to do is try to create our own original content and possibly be part of one of those booths in itself, so that you guys can actually come out and see us in that sense, where we're not doing the media side, we're actually an exhibitor side instead. Right. So still working through that.
So you ready for some 2-minute drill?
I am, and this show is going to go a little bit quicker than usual, but I am very excited for this movie.
We have things to do.
Unfortunately, we do have things to do.
All right, so I'm all lit up. You ready?
I am ready.
All right, 2-minute drill starts now. Hamunaptra is also known as the what?
What do you mean? Like the city of the dead?
There you go.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
What is the license plate of the car that Jonathan is driving through the town carrying Rick Daniels, the curator, Art of the Bay, while being chased by the townsfolk? Every time. I love doing this to you.
Be eating you? I don't know.
EL3535.
Why would I even pay attention to that?
I'm not sure.
Okay. How long has man fought over the Pharaoh land?
I mean, they say for thousands of years, so maybe 3,000 years ago.
Shit!
How old were the contents of the bottle that Jonathan found in the Warden satchel?
The year or the years?
Years. Like, how old was a bottle of scotch?
65 years?
No.
It was definitely old.
No, it was only 12 years old. 12-year-old scotch.
How the hell did I say 65?
I'm not sure.
Who plays Emotep?
Vosloo. Last name is Vosloo.
You have a full name?
It's Yadai or something like that. It's Vosloo. It's Vosloo is his last name. Because he was in several things. He was in Blood Diamonds as well. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm not going to get the first name. Vosloo is his last name.
Yeah. No, I don't know. Do we count that or not?
No, I'll leave it up to the fans.
Well then, go ahead.
Fine.
Arnold Vosloo's name.
Arnold. I even said an A. The language of the slaves is what?
There was many of them. Jewish.
Go further on that one.
Ah, shit.
There's a reason why I can't give that to you, because Jewish has 3 separate languages, particularly Hebrew was the language, because Yiddish is a different language as well. I'm sorry, like I really wanted to give that one to you. That's why I said keep going further with that.
Well, if you don't know what movie we're talking about, we're taking it back to 1999 with the Brendan Fraser, at this point now, classic. The Mummy.
Later,
yeah, The Mummy. Original release date, May 7th, 1999. Shares opening weekend with nothing.
Nothing really.
Nothing really opened that same weekend.
It's kind of funny because leading up into this weekend, so I got to go to 1999 real quick. Leading up into this weekend, the big talk for the month of May is going to be a movie that we are going to wind up talking about, and it's Star Wars: A Phantom Menace. And the reason why is because it's the first Star Wars movie that had been released since the 80s. A lot of people had a lot of excitement. There had always been some re-releases of the original trilogy, which people had a very mixed reaction about. But The Mummy was one of those that it classifies as a very unique format that, in my eyes, kind of broke a little bit of ground in terms of being an action horror film. Because most times an action horror film, the only one that really comes to mind before that was Monster Squad,
which I hardly remember.
Really?
Hardly.
Really?
But
that one's underrated.
The production budget was $80 million. Box office total $415.9 million. Currently sitting at a 58% on Rotten Tomatoes.
That is way too low.
Rewatching it today, that is very low. That's way low.
Way too.
And the reason why is because it's almost like you can't predict the future.
Right.
But if we knew then what we know now about The Mummy, this is easily the best version of itself.
Of course. It's funny because the sequel of it, which was highly anticipated, it's not that it didn't hit my expectations for it. It's when I first saw The Mummy Returns, I liked it as much as the original Mummy because the language was in Spanish and they were basically rehashing jokes from the original one.
Right.
But in the second one, they changed up the tone in English version, which is a little weird to have happened. So let's get into this movie. So this movie actually takes place far into the past in 1290 BC, with the high priest Imhotep has an love affair with Anck-su-namun, who is the mistress of the pharaoh Seti I, and this is taking place in Thebes in Egypt. Now, real quick, I know a lot of people. I know there's probably going to be a historian out there that's going to say what it is. Imhotep was a very real person in that time. However, do you know what he originally did?
Imhotep?
Yeah.
I'm sure you know.
I do know. He was the architect of the Great Pyramid of Giza.
Huh.
So they took the name, they kind of convoluted it into something else instead. So the whole point of this kind of messed up Romeo and Juliet a little bit was that Imhotep, while he practiced in dark magic, was in love with Anck-su-namun, and she was somebody that could not be messed with. Like, you could not physically touch her, as her body was painted in gold and black, and if you touched her, they'd be able to know because you'd be able to see the rubbings kind of off the body a little bit, which was really interesting. It was actually something that I don't know if that was an original concept for the film or if that was something they took from the past. But
I can say this: I didn't actually catch on to it until years down the road, because when he comes in, he says, "Who touched you?"
Right.
Like, the fuck you talking about? She didn't get touched.
Right, of course.
Kind of lying about what happened, but then you kind of realize he did smear the
right. You see the
gold.
shoulder has a spearing with it. Mm-hmm. So in this process, Anck-su-namun commits suicide. Actually, first they assassinate the Pharaoh Seti. Then Anck-su-namun kills herself, knowing that Imhotep, with his dark magic, was going to resurrect her. Okay. Again, a little bit complicated, but it kind of works itself out a little bit. So they steal her corpse and they travel to Hamunaptra, which is the city of the dead. But during the resurrection, they are stopped by Seti's bodyguards.
All black dudes, by the way.
Right. All black dudes.
All black dudes.
All black dudes. It was like the funny part about that. It's not that there's not such thing as a black Egyptian. There definitely no. There definitely is.
No, yeah, absolutely.
There totally is. It was just like it felt like Seti was like, all right, the white looking motherfuckers over there are all bitches. I want y'all to protect me over there.
It's more than that. When they all pop in the room. Where the fuck have y'all been this whole time? You know?
Right.
Because if you look at Imhotep's guards, or who's with him, they're all fairly Egyptian-looking men.
Right, they're priests.
They're priests. When he calls up the big dogs, it's all brothers. I'm like, hey,
right,
that's different. And every time I see that part, I just laugh. It's just so funny.
Right. So on that, real quick. The name of the guards, they're known as the Magi. And the reason why I say that is I never realized this. But later on in the film, when we actually get introduced to Oded Fehr's character, he's also part of the Magi. Right. Like it's something that's continued on throughout the years, which I thought was a little interesting. So, in the process, Imhotep's priests are all mummified because they're all stopped, while Imhotep himself suffers what is known as the Hamdai, which is the worst of all Egyptian curses. And the basic concept of it is to have the tongue and eyes removed, although they didn't show the eyes. And then they would actually, no, his eyes were still there, so it must have been eaten. But have the tongue removed, the tongue removed, mummified, buried alive, and then basically devoured slowly by scarabs. Throughout the year, and these scarabs, like they're a creation of their own. Like they are legitimately scary. They're just as scary in my eyes as the gremlins.
The scarabs are big ass roaches. Really, I mean,
yeah, but they're like flesh eating.
Yeah,
you saw how they devoured one guy so easily,
which I couldn't wait to see him go.
Right. Well, no, not the dude. No, I'm talking about just like one of the random dudes. That
okay.
Yeah.
All right, I got you.
So he's sealed away in a sarcophagus at the foot of the statue of the Egyptian god of Anubis, which, by the way, what did Anubis represent in Egyptian mythology? No? Come on, you gotta do research. Egyptian was a god associated with the afterlife.
I just watched the movies, you know?
Well, yeah. All right.
So,
so much about you.
Thanks for making me look bad. That's awesome.
I'm kidding. I'm messing around here. So this fast forwards to 1926.
Before that, we get our first introduction to Rick O'Connell, played by Brendan Fraser.
Right, in 1926.
And the squeal bag that is Benny.
Benny is underrated in this film.
He is.
But
not in a good way, though.
Really?
Oh, listen, okay. In these movies, typically set in this time, typically released in the 90s, there was always that one worm of a person that just is always around, right? Now, whether he's either a part of the crew, or he's either the one that was part of the crew and then goes rogue, or he's the one you least expect to do some foul shit.
Right.
Benny is a worm from jump, right? Like the way Kevin J. O'Connell plays his character is great, but at the same time, he kind of overplays it, if you ask me.
Okay, I can kind of get down with that.
Yeah,
but in that way, I kind of feel like he needed to overact a little bit.
You have to. The movie's silly as shit already.
Right, of course it is, but I like the way they overacted it because he's so memorable because of it. It's not even like bad overacting. It's just it really like emphasizes on the weaselness of his character a little bit. But at the same time, he's not an idiot. Like he's not dumb in that case. He just, you know, he knows how to get out of situations, basically.
He's a weasel.
Yeah, exactly, which is kind of the definition of it. So in 1926, you have Rick O'Connell, who is playing this American kind of a badass kind of character, kind of Errol Flynn type, not so much of dancing around or anything like that, but he's kind of a, he's one of those guys. What I love about this is that what's happening is that the Magi are literally standing there because American Legion forces are in Hamunaptra at this point, right? But they don't realize like the dangers that they're there. The Magi are there to basically drive them away. And what cracks me up is that O'Connell was not in charge of that army. There was another dude that was in charge of this army waving his sword around, and he just like turned around and he's just like, fuck this. And he just like takes his horse away, like totally completely the other direction into the city of Hamunaptra. And Benny literally goes and he looks over to Rick and he's like, you just got promoted. It's like, oh, well that sucks, And so they hold steady, they defend the city, but in the process of defending the city, Benny winds up running away, and you also see kind of a little bit of that Egyptian mythos magic that's kind of going on as a face is painted into the sand.
Right. Which is one of the original shots from the trailer. Which I was really impressed by.
Right.
Just kind of going off topic for a second. Not off topic, but when I saw the trailer for this movie for the first time, I was instantly hooked because I didn't know what it was going to be.
Right.
But for some reason, seeing, and we'll get to this part pretty soon, but seeing like a face appear out of sand in a trailer, I was like, that shit looks so cool. Whatever it was, it looks so cool to me.
Considering the budget for this film, it's actually pretty remarkable because some of the CGI kind of holds up to this day.
It does.
Like 20 years later, I'm sitting there, I'm like, look, I know it's going to start really getting dated, but man, it was really holding itself up, which kind of makes me irritated of other movies that couldn't put forth that little extra dough for it. So O'Connell's part finishes up, and it cuts over into a librarian scene with an aspiring Egyptologist, Evelyn, who is played by Rachel Weisz. And really, this was in a sense the breakout role of Rachel Weisz, and kind of the introduction as well, because she is, let's be honest, as much as often as she kind of seems like the damsel in distress, she's also so uniquely made for this movie, and she's excellent in it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You are right. I do believe there was no prior knowledge of Rachel Weisz before this movie. I find it just really, cool that you can see her in a movie that's now 20 years old. And there's not much of a difference in look between her or even Brendan Fraser for that matter.
Right.
But they showcase that, her I'm talking about, they showcase that young, hungry, talented, just breaking out vibe.
Right.
So in a sense, she had fun with this role.
She did.
Which I thought was really cool.
That's the thing that I love about this movie. This movie is a lot of fun because even the introduction of Evelyn is that she's over here and she's cataloging her books, right? And I mean, these are huge, massive, going up to the ceiling bookcases. So she's on a ladder, like doing this, and she's trying to, reach over. And what winds up happening is that she's reaching over to place another book in another area instead of climbing down the ladder and then moving over. She tries to reach over, and she winds up putting her ladder basically on stilts,
right.
Which then, after a small, funny 10 seconds. Winds up having her collide and domino affecting, dropping every book in the library. just totally completely like demolishing the library in the process.
And shout out to Eric Avari, who plays who we figure out later on as part of the
Magi,
right. As well. But even the intros to his characters, like how
why do I keep you around, girl?
If this movie was rated R, he goes, what the fuck?
Right, exactly.
Because it's just like he's always played that character that's very, very timid, but very like, kind of on edge a lot. So when he comes into the scene, that reaction is so genuine. Like,
I know, it's so great. It really is great because like even afterwards, she's just like, oops. And it's all like, oops, you just made like 2 weeks worth of work for no reason whatsoever.
You know what it's going to take?
You have to lift up these bookcases. And I already said they go to the ceiling.
And put back every book.
Oh, man, it's good. It's too funny. So then we get the introduction to Jonathan, who is her brother. And Jonathan at first was really funny, and then when I would rewatch this later, he would annoy me. But rewatching it even again, just the other day, I couldn't stop laughing at him because he's so ridiculous, like everything he does.
I love Jonathan because he thinks quick on his feet.
He does.
He's quick.
Not only is he quick on his feet, but he's a genuinely smart guy. He just has one thing that he's going after: money. Like as much money as he can possibly obtain at this point.
Right.
But he basically finds from one of his finds he stole a box from from the American Rick O'Connell, and what he does basically is that they open up the map, or they open up this puzzle box, and it looks like kind of a key, and there's something inside, and inside basically has the directions to Hamunaptra, right? Which is again, kind of like a little bit of peacemaking. So what winds up happening is that when they present this to the owner of the library, or now kind of the head of Magi, which they didn't know at the time, he winds up like accidentally burning off the part of the map to actually get to Hamunaptra, right? Which now we know later on that's kind of a little bit on purpose, right?
Right.
So they go to this prison, and this prison just looks like dog shit. I mean, it looks awful. Not only are people in cages, people are in handcuffs. It's wide out in the open, so it's hot. It's smelly. It doesn't look like there's a shower anywhere
in
at
sight.
all. And we see Rick. Basically in there. And I said American Legion. My apologies. I was wrong on that. It's actually the French Foreign Legion. And I should have known that because he actually spoke French at one point. And they basically make a deal to get Rick out of prison to lead them back to Hamunaptra.
Shout out to Brendan Fraser and his Georgia Jungle throwback look.
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty sweet. Or really the Encino Man look.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, very Encino Man.
Very orange.
Kind of feel.
He was very orange.
So in the process of leading this way, they kind of have to score some camels. But before they do so, they actually take a ferry to go there, and you kind of get a little bit of the background of them, and you find out that there's these other group of American treasure hunters who are guided by, lo and behold, none other than Benny.
Good old Benny boy. And of course, in typical Weasel fashion, Benny shows up and like it's all good. Right. It's all good.
Oh, O'Connell, I know you would learn to forgive me. So, I'm going to kill you, Benny.
Goodbye, Benny. But for some reason, Benny always finds a way to kind of just get back to you. Now, like you said, they do. We do get some good backstory on pretty much everybody on the ship there. Now, they too have a professor, somebody who's very knowledgeable about what they're looking for.
Right, and it's funny because they never actually mentioned his name.
See, it's just professor.
You'd have to literally go into the director's commentary to find out that his name is Dr. Alan Chamberlain. But they just refer to him as the Egyptologist. The funny thing is, this is kind of a bigger name actor at this point that's actually playing him. Do you recognize who he was?
Jonathan Hyde.
Yeah.
He played, for me, the butler Richie Rich.
Yeah. He also played
Alan's
Jumanji.
dad in Jumanji.
He's Alan's dad, Jumanji.
Yes, so true. So true.
He's also Van Pelt in Jumanji because it's one and the same.
Very true. I first got Mr. Hyde during Richie Rich.
So it's a little funny to kind of see like he's taken kind of a back role in this case, considering Jumanji was only 3 years older than this movie at this point. Mm-hmm. But in this process, they get attacked by the Magi. Some good chemistry was kind of built between both Evie and Rick. Mm-hmm. We can genuinely see why they actually like each other. And this was something that was so key in this movie because really, if you cut out the love story, you probably could have saved 20 minutes away from the movie. So it's one of those where it's like, do you cut that out or do you not? And in my eyes, you keep it in the movie because it really forces you to kind of like these characters, to kind of hope to figure out like this entire
You'll be able to make it out.
Right. Exactly. So they wind up making it to Hamunaptra. after a camel versus horse race. And in the process, one of the first things that they actually find is the famous Book of the Living, or what they're basically looking for is what's known as the Book of the Living, which is a book made out of pure gold in general. They find a spot where they think they should be digging at, and it's where you actually find out that they actually break the base of the statue of Horus and find Imhotep's crypt at this point.
Right.
As well as the American group, while digging, actually find a case that has 5 statues. Yeah, 5 statues are in it because one of them is actually broken. Mm-hmm. As well as like a curse, and you kind of gain this notion that this is kind of doing callbacks back to the 1920s and 30s of the Mummy's curse with Lon Chaney, and it's kind of one of those things where it's like, okay, well, where exactly is this movie going to go from here? Because now it looks like they're just going to find everything.
Have you noticed every time that someone even mentions curse, there's a weird whistle to breathe in air?
Right. There's a wind that kind of happens through here. And it's funny because O'Connell actually literally says that later on. He's all like, that happens a lot out here.
It's curse.
So in this process, Evie decides to steal the Book of the Dead after the Egyptologist has fallen asleep. Recognizing that it needs a key to actually open, uses a key to actually open up the book and decides to read a passage in it. And in that passage comes, the mummy comes back to life.
Imhotep now comes back. Now, that part scared the shit out of me.
You know what? And even to this day, I was like, even though I know the jump is coming, like it
still makes you jump.
It was a pretty effective jump.
And I remember when Imhotep's body first comes out the crypt, it's like, for 3,000 years old,
he's so juicy.
Quite juicy. It's just, you think be nothing but dirt in there now at this point. But it's just, and then I love that scene because it's almost like Rick and Jonathan knew what we were thinking as they were still like,
right.
Why it
looks so juicy.
It does. So when it cuts back to the corpse, and he just jumps out of nowhere, and now he's alive again. It's like, that is probably one of the most creepiest scenes in the movie.
Now, one of the first things that he does is he actually takes the eyes and tongue from Mr. Burns, which I actually thought was a little interesting because Mr. Burns was basically blind without his glasses. So I'm like, does that kind of make him a little bit blind? But they didn't really explain that. Like,
they really didn't, which I thought, if you said
his eyes crossed a little bit.
He ain't got the best eyes.
Right, exactly. like who's all worried? But the other thing that he brings upon is the 10 plagues back to Egypt. And that is such a cool idea. Mm-hmm. To actually bring back the plagues that Moses brought upon Egypt for not listening to the word of God. Right. And the first thing you get is the locusts, and the locusts just like all come out and just basically eat away. One thing that we did forget to mention is the scarabs actually in this process, because the warden is deciding to collect on his investment. Well, he gets eaten away by one of the scarabs actually as it crawls into his brain, and he slams his head full speed against a stone wall.
So that pretty much
that killed him.
Yeah, that's into that.
Right. And that's probably my cut that out, to be honest, because I feel like even though the guy did have legitimate funny scenes,
yes,
I felt like this movie had enough funny scenes for him to basically kind of just be cut out from the story altogether. After the warden is basically paid for, then what?
I agree. He wasn't necessarily needed. Because, if you're looking for just, simply, goofy, silly comic relief, you still had Jonathan for that.
Right.
You still have your scenes with Benny for that.
Right. So. And you still also had Rick and Evie. So it's one of those that if there is something that I kind of wish they could have pulled back on is probably him. But these 10 plagues were legit. Like they did the locusts. They did the rivers of blood. Yeah. As they turned an actual water fountain and everybody's drink in a bar because they all escape. They all escape back to the fort, the army fort that was there, and every drink in there into blood in itself. And then you see the fireballs coming in, just basically torching everybody up. So they bring in these 12 plagues of Egypt. You get the blood that's in the fountain. You get the fireballs that are coming in. They're just like torching everybody.
Right.
in the same way, though, on the other side, you have Benny. After having kind of a funny scene speaking with Imhotep to try to figure out what language is he going to be able to allow to accept, the first thing that Imhotep wants to do is recollect all the statues, which is stolen by the American crew,
right.
To regenerate his body. And once that happens, he fully becomes immortal at that point.
Right.
So it's kind of funny, you know, to kind of see this like next little bit, because in a way it's a side story, but it kind of leads up to that very end, because we all know what's going to happen. And the first thing that he does is he goes back to Mr. Burns and he eats a little bit of his body, right? And he becomes a little bit more of himself, you know, and Benny is just being a scumbag about this. Then the Egyptologist, once Rick and his group start figuring out what exactly is going on, the Egyptologist, it gets eaten away as well, becoming a little bit more of himself and throwing locusts at these people, and then so on and so forth, until we finally kind of move on a little bit forward. And it's not that I didn't like the side story. It's interesting to kind of build up how powerful this mummy actually is,
right.
But it doesn't really do much for the plot.
I will say this. We spoke earlier about the Beatles. What were they called again?
The Americans?
No, the Beatles.
The Scarabs.
The Scarabs. So the Scarabs starts to do this crazy, powerful things that they eat your flesh, right?
Right.
I love the one shot they do when you have Imhotep pretty much regenerating, not fully, but his face is almost there, and you see the Scarab going up to his jaw. He just
like straight up eats it, because it's funny because it actually slides out from like his neck hole into his cheek hole. And he just crunch. And I'm just like, oh, that okay, gross.
I mean, like it looks gross, but kind of a boss move. Like, all right, well,
it is.
You know, those things kill whole humans. So
right. So we also find out, because they decide to basically go to Ardeth and his crew. They know that basically the plan is to resurrect Anck-su-namun, and by doing so, it's going to help basically cause hell on Earth at this point, right? The other side of that is that Imhotep is kind of slowly falling in love with Evie every time he sees her, and that's to basically resurrect Anck-su-namun by needing a human sacrifice, which is what the ending of the ritual was supposed to be. So the idea then becomes that if the Book of the Dead brings back the dead, then the Book of the Living may be the possibility of making it, of basically killing him in this case. So it then begins kind of this long sequence of trying to get back to Hamunaptra, and it first begins in the museum to find out where the Book of the Living is going to be buried at, which is in the statue of Horus.
Statue of Horus.
The statue of Horus, right? Because that's what's going to bring us back to life. And again, a little bit of funny scenes. You have kind of like this whole army controlled by Imhotep, of slaves, and they're like, Imhotep. And Jonathan just basically acts like one of the controlled people, because he looks like he's about to be slaughtered.
Like they're under like that deep control, because he just said Imhotep. Like, you're one of us. It's all good.
Right. Like, oh, that's cool.
Sorry,
he got turned as well. Whatever. He's going to go up against his sister now.
Like he just got turned. It's all good.
So they basically are cornered by this army of slaves. The last American is then consumed, and he basically, and you could see the full of his power at that point. Basically goes and he disappears as if he's going to travel back to Hamunaptra. In this process, Rick and his crew, whoever is left, which in this case is only Odette Fair, who has joined at this point, Jonathan, approach Winston, who is this old World War I pilot.
Who could very much be my that guy.
Right. You want to know what's so great about him is that in that whole like early fountain scene, he keeps stepping into the fountain.
Right.
Like, no problem. He's all like, some bloody idiot spilt his drink. But he keeps doing it. Like, he's so unaware of anything. But he's basically the last American soldier that's there. And he just wants to die. He's not even American. He's British. I'm sorry.
He just wants to die.
Yeah, that's all he wants to do is die, which is I feel you, old man.
Hey, man. Sometimes speed it up. Let's go. But
how's life taking forever?
He to me can very much be that guy because the brief moment we have with him is so memorable because obviously
he has to get a mention in this movie.
You know what I'm saying? And but you literally watch his whole backstory. Come up in all of that in about 3 minutes?
Pretty much, and it's a memorable 3 minutes.
Absolutely, to the point where he does actually dies.
So they begin to fly this World War I plane. Which, for those of you who don't know, how do you fly four people into a 2-seater? You basically seatbelt them onto the wings.
Yeah,
and this is true because it used to be back in the day before the idea of bombing crews. It used to be 2 people strapped to the side of the planes, grabbing mortars and dropping them on enemies. But they would have to fly so low that they could be hit by gunfire at that point. It was insane to think. World War I was a really weird war, guys.
Kind of sound a bit ill-prepared a little bit.
Right.
Oh, okay.
So they do return to Hamunaptra. In the process, Winston gets killed from this really amazing shot of Imhotep basically creating a wall of sand with his face on it, and just basically like eating the airplane in this process, right? Mm. And this was sick. Like even 20 years later, I'm sitting there and I'm like, ew. I'm like, man, this is
yuck.
Whew, this is rough.
Yuck.
But it was good. So they go into Hamunaptra. Mummies have been resurrected. And they have decided to kind of start, doing the whole mummy thing,
right?
Trying to kill off people. They fail, obviously,
clearly,
and we get this sequence where Rick has basically taken out like all of these mummies in this process. Mm. Anck-su-namun is resurrected, but hasn't been fully resurrected, so the human sacrifice actually hasn't happened at this point. And the Book of the Living has been found. In the process, and somehow Jonathan screws up an enchantment, and basically calls in like the Super King's Guard. That's all I can think that they actually are, and these guys were like really, really freaking legit. Right. Like being dead mummies with it, but they had like weapons and they were athletic, and it was. They just
knew what it was,
right? And this is one of those. This may be one of my most iconic scenes, is because earlier in the film, before the mummy is fully resurrected, he does this thing where he like screams at Evelyn and Rick's carrying a shotgun,
screams back there.
He's like shoots him. So then he tries doing the same thing to these mummies, but instead they're like mouths elongated down to like their sternum, and just like screams at him, and he's just like
Brendan Fraser style.
No thanks, I can find a new wife. But in this process, they're able to command the mummies to actually kill Anck-su-namun. Then it's basically Arnold Vosloo versus Brendan Fraser at that point. And it's cool. Yeah, like it's a legitimately cool fight, but they find the inscription. The inscription makes him mortal, and Rick winds up killing him in the process.
Right.
After that, it's a whole huge escape. Benny is still alive somehow throughout this entire thing, kind of stealing gold and whatnot. And this is where like his greed really got to him, because he actually was out with a bag of gold, and he could have left like right then and there, but he wanted more. In the process, he's basically trapped in the pyramid where the scarabs wake up and wind up killing him.
Yeah.
Afterwards, we get, the
little love story.
Little loving kiss.
They love each other. They stay together. 2 horrible sequels later. That's where we are.
Right, pretty much. And that would be
the mummy.
That would be the mummy.
Thanks to you by Dave, thank you, Dave.
You're welcome.
All right. Dave, who's gonna get that guy one?
It's gonna go to Brendan Fraser. Rick O'Connell.
You know what? Stop. Compare this movie to our recent.
Oh God. So originally, when this movie was released, the first actor they actually approached to do this was Tom Cruise. Mm-hmm. Which good move on Tom Cruise not to take it then, and also bad move to then take it later on.
Yeah.
Because the Mummy remake had potential. It actually had some really cool shots in the trailers. I was like, you know what? This, we'll see. You know, but then like once everything kind of came together, you were bored and just like there was overacting. I was bored and it like
I was very bored in it.
I didn't see where it was going to make its money at.
More than that, this is the second time Cruise. No, maybe more than the second time, but that's for me. Before the Mummy, as far as bad decisions, was what came before Edge of Tomorrow? Oblivion.
Oblivion was rough.
That's a rough ride. Edge of Tomorrow was great.
Edge of Tomorrow was great, and there's a reason why that's getting a sequel. Like because they literally came up with the idea of, hey, let's find a way to kill Tom Cruise over and over and over again, and everybody loved it because everybody hates on Tom Cruise. I don't know why. Y'all are crazy. Tom Cruise should have won an Oscar long ass time ago. But what do you think? Like 20 years later, how well does this movie hold up?
Now, like I said, once again, now looking at this movie again, having no interest in going back to the sequels at all, or the Scorpion King for that matter either, and rewatching The Mummy with Tom Cruise, you'd be a fool to not say this is a classic movie.
It is.
And the reason why is because, number one, like you said, even the CGI holds up.
It really does.
20 years later. Like, we watching it back at the crib, and you realize that with the HD TV, it still holds up very well.
There were still a lot of practical effects they did with it.
Right.
And that was the key that they did. And it's something Hollywood should really pay attention. I'm cool with CGI to an extent, but there has to be some practicality that's there.
So let's make it feel real.
The sword has to look like an actual sword. It can't look like something rubbery. You know, that's just being swung around.
Right.
I'm just thinking you're fine with dildos at that point.
But now that I've seen the Brendan Fraser Mummy and I've seen the Tom Cruise Mummy, I prefer the Brendan Fraser all day.
Easily. Hands down, easily.
Now, who's getting you that guy award?
All right, so that guy award's going to go to Rick O'Connell, and I'll say why. It's not so much that he's necessarily a badass character, because if you think about it, he doesn't really do anything. He doesn't really do anything overly imposing or is has superhero powers or whatnot. Right. In fact, in some ways, like he's a smart guy. He realizes that he just got paid, to do this one thing. He came back and he was cool with dipping out, but he cared about the girl at that point. Right. What Brendan Fraser does, though, is he brings that kind of casual Brendan Fraser charm that he has, and it works because Rick O'Connell is a very, very likable guy. Like, there's nothing. Name one thing about Rick O'Connell that you just don't care for.
No, I feel as if Rick O'Connell was written for Brendan Fraser.
Exactly.
Like, it fits him and his charm and his personality to a T.
He's not arrogant or cocky, but at the same time, he knew how to handle his business.
Right.
He kind of constantly falls for the same ploy from Benny, but at the same time, he knows he's smarter than him, and just hasn't found a real chance to kill him in the case that he wants to. Right. At the same time, he in a sense he's kind of Han Solo. I
see the comparison.
He doesn't really believe in all this crap. But at the same time, once it kind of happens, he's all like, "Oh yeah, no, that's something we gotta take care of right now." Right. It's even funny when he realizes how powerful the Mummy has become. Like when the wall scene comes up, he's all like, "Oh my god, hey Winston, pedal faster!" like the plane's gonna go any faster than this magically summoned wall that's rushing at you
with the whole face in it.
I know. Oh, man.
That's wild to me.
It was great.
That chicken word.
Once again, unfortunately, back in the 90s, they would only hire one woman at a time. Don't know why. But so it's pretty easy. It goes to Evelyn. But at least Evelyn earns it in this. A lot of times when they hire the one woman kind of thing, they do the Temple of Doom thing, which is she's a damsel in distress. She's annoying. She provides nothing to the storyline whatsoever. And there are moments where you are totally, completely okay with her dying in the movie, which never happens, of course. With Evelyn, she's charming, as well as a bit naive, but also really, really, really knows her stuff. In that case, she's really a librarian. She kind of fits the whole role of librarian.
Of knowing her shit, basically.
Right. And it's hilarious to kind of see it, who she is, because you can tell she's also one of those girls that really, really keeps to herself in her own little study and whatnot, because she like never drinks, and you could really see that.
Right.
So when she winds up actually getting drunk one night, she's all like, I know, like Rick's trying to figure out, he's like, I get why everybody else is here, but why are you here?
Right.
She's all like, I'm not one of those like treasure hunters or adventurers, but I know who I am and I'm proud of who I am. And he's all like, and what is that? She's all like, I'm
a librarian.
A librarian.
Like,
it's like, you know what? All right. You know, I get that there's like no real point to have you here, but you just want to be here anyway.
You're a librarian.
And that's cool.
Cool.
I'm down for that. So yeah.
This full award.
It's a little tough, but I'm actually going to go with the 4 Americans. I cannot give it to Benny. Because Benny was smarter than all of them.
Okay.
No doubt about it. They read a curse on a box. Benny recognized
After being told not to.
As being told not to. And they still decided to go for it because they were that hungry for treasure.
Right.
It was like the minute they found their first piece of treasure. Meanwhile, they could have continued exploring it and they would have found the entire freaking treasure room that was there. That had the type of stuff that you could move away to somewhere easily.
Right.
No problem. But first piece of treasure, you curse yourselves. That's on you. Kind of have to give it to the warden a little bit. Just it's not even so much the actor, because he actually does a fine role in it. It just there's already too much comedy in this, and him adding on to the comedy is fine, but it also was something that you could have been you could have left without him in it whatsoever.
Right. Iconic scene.
The iconic scene in this movie has to base itself upon, once again, turning this into an action / comedy / horror film. And it is the first time you actually see the scream between the mummy and Rick. Because, oh my God, something incredible is happening. This scary-ass mummy is in front of me. And he's screaming at me to make me scream, basically. I scream back, pull my shotgun, and shoot him in the leg. It's so Indiana Jones-like in that case. And it's something that it sticks with me so well with this movie.
All
right. My guy, Jay Alonso, who's just getting your That Guy Award?
My That Guy Award. I struggle with this one because obviously you want to give it to Rick. I was going to give it to Benny because he's a weasel.
Right.
But I'm going to give it to Rick. Only because this movie, this role was tailor-made for Brendan Fraser. He plays it, like you said, very Han Solo-ish. Mixed a little Indiana Jones in there. And hell, if this was present day, Star-Lord. So the way he goes about actually, kind of maintaining that cool composure, being your straight man while being the goofy clown as well. And pretty much letting you know he's not cocky, but he can handle his business.
Right.
So for that, and is willing to take on any challenge.
Right.
So for that, I appreciate Rick O'Connell. So yeah.
That Chick Award?
It was gonna be a Knocks on the Moon.
I guess that could have been somebody else.
But now that you made the play about Evie and the fact that she is not an adventurer, she's not a gunslinger, she's a librarian. I'm here because I want to be here.
Right.
You're better than me, so
right,
I would
exactly.
give you that. I'll definitely give you that for sure. So it'd be Evie.
She was the one most excited to be part of this journey,
and
more than anybody else, and treasure was involved.
To speak on that, and while shit is hitting the fan, you still figured out whatever little comedy you figured out. Right. Take that, Bembridge Scholars. We ain't got time for this shit. We gotta go.
We're being hunted by slaves, Evie.
We
what are you
have no
doing?
time for this shit.
but not only that, but even afterwards, like Rick's getting his ass kicked by Imhotep, right? I mean, getting his ass kicked, and Jonathan is like, hurry, Evie, hurry. And she's all like, patience is a virtue.
Like, not right now, it's not.
Like she's like, do you think this is like me opening up a book and being able to read this fully, no problem? I have to translate this a little bit, but it's pretty funny. That full award.
That full award, I'm going to go with you, definitely the 4 Americans. Because you're hard-headed as fuck. You were told, don't do certain things, but you're so money hungry. Right. So treasure hungry. All you can do is just like, fuck all that. Where the treasure at? Right. And then you got what you got. You got what you got.
Which is funny because I almost feel like you can do the exact same thing in The Mummy Returns because, once again, told not to open it whatsoever, and they decided to open it. Except this point, at this point, they not only has Imhotep resurrected, but he also resurrected Anck-su-namun perfectly at that point. Cut that out.
Cut that out. I'm going to agree with you on that one. Cut that out. I'm going to go with the Warden. The Warden because, like we said, there's already plenty of comic relief in here. He is a fun character, but you don't get attached to him because he's probably the first to die.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying? So you don't really have the time to really get to know him. And, because before when we first meet him, he wants to hang Rick.
Right.
And try to sway Evie to give him some. So you kind of know where his head is at. You know what I mean? So yeah, I'm all right.
And iconic scene.
Iconic scene will be the first time. No, not the first time. During that airplane fight with the dust, and his face, Imhotep's face, pops up in the sand wall.
Oh yeah, and you're like, oh god, this is legit.
This is legit. I'm actually 100% genuinely scared. So yeah, that's where I'm at with mine.
That's fine.
Let's get to some quick hits real quick. And we can wrap this puppy up.
Quick hits real quick. I love when you do that.
Quick hits real quick.
Quick hits real quick.
Say that sometimes fast. Quick hits real quick.
Quick hits real quick. Quick hits real quick. Anyways.
Like a backhand on the telephone. All right, so Brendan Fraser nearly died during a scene where his character is hanged. Rachel Weisz remembered Fraser, stopped breathing and had to be resuscitated.
Oh my god.
So that's really him joking. Yes, that's really him joking.
Dedication.
Not for me. Can't do it. The white nightgown Evelyn wore when the ship was attacked became transparent when it got wet. It had to be digitally painted white during post-production so the film could keep its PG-13 rating.
Oh, yeah. That makes sense.
Yep, sure does. In one scene, Benny is shown with a sack full of gold, which he is trying to load onto a camel. And Benny pulls the camel by the reins, but the camel doesn't budge. The camels all, for some reason, hated Kevin J. O'Connor.
That's great.
The library disaster was done in one take. It would have taken an entire day to reshoot if a mistake had been made.
Yeah, and it was perfect.
Oh yeah,
it was a perfectly shot.
It just worked out first run. You're good. Stephen Summers came up with the gag of Evelyn saving Rick from 2 gunshots on the burning boat the night before they filmed the scene. Which I would have used that as a cut that out because it was like, dude, this bullet's getting close to your face.
Right.
Move.
Right.
Let me see. Where are we at? During the scene when Imhotep is raising the sandstorm in the desert, the camera had to quickly pan up. The wind machine being used kept blowing Arnold Vosloo's cape up, exposing his backside.
That's funny.
Showing his ass. While filming, John Hannah sprained his wrist and had to wear a brace on it, which shows up during his final scenes.
Yeah.
Let me see. And last but not least, Leonardo DiCaprio was rumored to have been offered the role of Rick O'Connell. It's believed DiCaprio was said to have loved the script and wanted to be in the film. However, he had already agreed to star in The Beach, which came out in 2000. It's also been said that DiCaprio asked if The Beach could be delayed so he could film The Mummy, but producers refused. However, the filming of The Beach was delayed anyway.
Oh, man. But I can't really picture DiCaprio.
Me neither. And I couldn't picture the movie being this goofy.
Right.
With DiCaprio in it.
Right. It wouldn't be that goofy. It'd be, yeah. Especially because DiCaprio during that. DiCaprio didn't change until The Aviator. Once The Aviator happened, that's when his acting chops really started to show up.
Yeah, took some time out there. But The Beach was pretty heavy as well. So
it is heavy. But it was like The Beach, and you had the party, you had Blood Diamond, and it kind of went forward there quite heavily there.
Right. Well, that is the show. That is today's movie, The Mummy. What did you guys think about The Mummy? It doesn't hold up for you. It's still a classic for you. It is for me. Now we have the Tom Cruise movie out there. Ugh. But with that being said, Dave, Fedora Dave.
Excuse me, real quick.
Ugh. Let the people know where they can find
Fedora Dave. Here we go. You can always find me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at David Danger Neff. I'm the co-host here at for Beat Network Back to the Classics. You can find our live videos of the Level Up Expo on beatnetworkonline.com. My guy, Jay Alonso, where can they find you?
You can find me on all the social medias, simply at I am Jay Alonso. That's Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, and Twitter. Don't forget the Back to the Classics page. Hope I say that again. The Back to the Classics Facebook page is up and running. And thanks to my guy, Dave Neff, we now have a new movie page up.
All right. I forgot about explaining that. Yeah, spoiling the classics, which was literally something I just kind of pulled off in my car. The idea of this is that too often we can't really talk about spoilers, but we want to talk about spoilers because it's important to kind of get the actual ideas out there. And to be honest, everybody wants to know what kind of happens in a movie anyway. There's literally like a website that's literally like, do you know, is this going to be worth $12 of your time? You know, and it's like, oh, okay, I can kind of see that point on why it's kind of important. But yeah, I like the concept. I think it's a fun concept. We do have a new admin that I think you and I are both pretty happy to have, and it's Dwayne, obviously, one of our writers. The main reason why is because it's not all the time that you're going to see Jay and myself be able to kind of edit everything out there or post new stuff. So we do encourage you guys to post out for this. Now, I do want to please say, if you are going to post spoilers, please keep it to the Spoiling the Classics webpage and not the Back to the Classics. And the main reason why is because Back to the Classics, we really want to kind of focus out on whatever movie talk is going on to stuff that's basically not spoiler friendly. Keep it on Spoiling the Classics. Join the group there. I promise you, I'm going to approve you, and we can talk it all day, every day.
And don't forget about following the show on Instagram at BTTC Podcast. Next week is Super Throwback. Really looking forward to next week. I think we've said it all, done it all.
I think we're good.
With that being said, I am Jan Alonso. With me is
David Danger Neff.
Fedora Neff.
Fedora Neff.
Back to Classics. See y'all next week. See you next week, Grandma. Love ya.